what I wanted to talk about was the boredom I continue to get, sadly, as I get older, after listening to years upon years upon years of days upon days upon days of hours and hours and hours on lectures, whether it is the concept of belief, whether it is religion itself, which is one level of abstraction lower, not higher, whether it's anthropology or different versions of evolutionary concepts, or lectures on people simulating frauds in order to develop discoveries, and how that throws people's reliance or trust in the institution, which endorses any future discoveries, different ideologies that appear. Obviously in America you have these different arguments on this side and that side, and people inhabit certain arguments, and then over time you see people move positions. What I've noticed with myself is that I keep moving towards abstraction, and what happens is that anything I watch from now on, whether it's predictions, whether it's political science, whether it's game theory, whether it's topology, whether it's any other mathematical domain, whether it's a discussion in science, in belief, epistemology, eschatology, the analysis of the West by a Westerner, by a non-Westerner, you start to notice that there are less boxes of different types of abstractions than there are implementations of those abstractions. So what I mean by that is that, let's say there's one ideology which hates another ideology, or the inhabitants of which hate the other ideology. But it turns out that the elements which make up the reasons for one person believing in one ideology overlap substantially with its opposite. And it can be anything. Someone is pro-tree, someone's anti-tree. Right? Whatever it is, that the whole collection of information and organizing of ideas and memes and genetics and environment that lead to one being held hostage by a certain ideology, they overlap so much that you actually get bored, because every new thing that you think is apparently new or claims to be new turns out to be a repeat of the same abstraction in a different form. So you might hear an argument that results in someone making a conclusion, and the conclusion is false because it requires bias plus the evidence to reach that conclusion. So if you think of something like Guess Who is, there's a game from ages ago, but there's many different versions today in 2026, where someone might say, does your person have brown hair? And you say yes, but that eliminates everyone with not brown hair. So what you have left in your game is all of the people with brown hair. Now that doesn't allow you to conclude, thank you, that the answer is Jim, because there are other people other than Jim. G'day, Santya, Gosia. There are other people. Oh, really? There you go. Who also have brown hair. So to make one particular conclusion is to use a bias to leap towards suspecting that it's one over the other. Now what I find is running around YouTube are various claims, and they will have brilliantly articulated evidence, they will have brilliant predictions, and then the person who's hosting the other person might take that and actually use that to push forward some other conclusion, like therefore this ideology is correct or that ideology is correct. And the problem with that is, of course, it eliminates the possibility of other conclusions which are equally valid that you can make with the same evidence plus a different bias. I'm speaking way too abstractly, but what's my point in this particular case? The problem is, as soon as I bring up the example, right, it's going to have people focus on the example. But maybe that is the capacity of certain neurotypes. I shouldn't say capacity, that's condescending, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that is perhaps the way some neurotypes perceive the world, and that's all you can do. There's nothing else you can do about it. There's too many. Captain Deltron, hey, g'day. Yeah, natural. So, for example, if I even say this, it's already gonna piss people off. I happened to watch a professor today, and this professor was someone I want to follow. I don't know much about him except for he is so far deeply proficient in the application g'day of game theory with modern politics. He's non-Western, but he studied Western history in a way that we in the West might study ancient Roman history or something like that. And it's brilliant because he looks at it with different biases. So he happened to be on someone I would not personally say is aligned with the way I view the world, to put it nicely. And I'm not saying anything about them as a person at all. I'm just saying different ways of seeing the world. And he was on this show, and there's already 1.5 million people watching. And this person giving predictions and about political science, etc. And the person hosting the show is then making conclusions, which are, and then in the comments people go, "That's right, that's right, that's right," and then you just have this tribalism. Because everyone's saying that's right, but there are other people who don't say it's right. And what is the difference? The difference is that the evidence that was produced in that clip does not allow you to come to the conclusion that the person's making without certain assumptions which were implicit to the person holding certain biases. And this type of thinking, as Captain Deltron knows, is ubiquitous. It is almost, to be human is to do this. And so I'm sitting there looking at it and I'm just bored shitless, because I almost was tempted to jump on Periscope and on YouTube and actually say, look, here's the analysis of what he said. That's what's wrong, like what we used to do years ago on Periscope. But maybe, I don't know, maybe now in my 40s, I'm just jaded in that way. I was listening, for example, to another lady give a podcast. Thank you to Michael Out, awesome, another excellent supporter like Captain Deltron. And she was someone who was of, Australian and some other ethnicity descent, which I won't mention. And she was talking about how it affected her because she still has family in that place, and that place happens to be a war zone. The reason I abstract it is because it applies to all different countries. I don't need to stick to one country. The thing is that the person made an emotional appeal to how could they do this, how could they do that. Now, 40 years ago, we heard this question, how could they do this, how could they do that? Instead of being so amazed at how someone could do something, let's look at the evidence. I used to love pizza with pineapple, to answer your question, when I was 12. Not anymore, so that was a long time ago. Now, the understanding, in fact, the evidence suggests that political or global geopolitics does not give a shit about, let's base our attacks or not based upon if we're going to hurt someone's family who happens to be a citizen of our country. They don't care. And I know this from experience. Now, I don't like it. I would like people to care, but this doesn't seem to work. So you get bored of any argument which makes an emotional appeal in a geopolitical environment. And I just get over it. So I don't talk about that either. So many stuff we used to talk about in the past, I just can't be bothered. And you start to notice that humans have certain pathways in which they can act, and that's it. And it not only explains, and I'm not saying it therefore you can conclude, but it not only explains why the move in Go that was done by Google's DeepMind, years ago, which was the beat that human, but it was also a move that no human had come up with in thousands of years. And it is, that itself is evidence of some sort of limitation on our mind's ability to move through the information space, or whatever space you want to generalize this world to. So what do? You just give up and you say, "G'day everyone, nice to see you, and it's a pleasure, and until next time, take life one smack at a time."